I'll request we remain standing as I now call on Abdallah Mohammed and Sophie Muturi to lead us in a short word of prayer.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ewe Mola muumba mbingu na ardhi, ewe Mola ulioko juu, twakuomba katika siku hii ya leo ujalie mkutano huu uwe wa kheri, uwe wa amani, uwe wa baraka, uwe wa neema. Ujalie maazimio yote ambayo tutayapitisha hapa yawe ya sawa, yawe ya kheri, yawe ya neema, yenye kusaidia nchi hii na wananchi. Twakuomba ewe Mola Mwenyezi Mungu, umbariki rais wetu, umpe hikma, umpe baraka, umpe neema, apate kutuongoza sisi vizuri katika kipindi chote kile ambacho wewe umembariki kuwa kiongozi wa nchi yetu. Ewe Mola, tukuomba ujalie amani, baraka na neema katika nchi hii yetu tukufu. Utupe neema nyingi nyingi, utupe amani, utupe baraka. Ewe Mola, waongoze viongozi wetu wote katika kutuongoza vizuri katika nchi hii yetu tukufu, na utujalie wenye neema nyingi na baraka. Ewe Mola, tukuomba kwa jina lako tukufu, kwani wewe ndiye mtukufu wa watukufu. Amin.
Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, we praise you and honor you for your faithfulness, your care and your keeping since we started this conference. Lord God Almighty, we thank you for the success of the 3rd National Wage Bill Conference, during which, Lord, you gathered this enormous congregation of leaders. We acknowledge that all authority comes from you, and those holding positions of authority are placed there by you, Lord. Almighty God, this morning we thank you for our President, His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, his Deputy Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, Cabinet Secretaries, and all those in authority. Almighty God, we make intercession for our President that as he exercises the authority you have given him over this nation, he would experience your favor, receive wisdom, knowledge, and understanding from above. Lord, we pray that you would imbue him with distinct ability and courage. Our gracious Father, we thank you for our beloved nation, Kenya. Thank you that as you, Lord, made nations of mankind to live on the face of the earth, it pleased you to make us Kenyans. Lord God Almighty, we pray that the conference resolutions that we will be hearing later will ignite within us a resolve to serve the public with an unequivocal commitment and remain faithful to oaths taken and pledges made. And we do that, as we do that, Lord, we ask that you would let your favor be upon us as a nation. And it is in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Let us kindly take our seats. Your Excellency, the President of this nation and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, Your Excellency, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, the CDF, General Ogola, the COG Chair, Madam Anne Waiguru, the Governor Nairobi, all governors present, the CS Public Service, Honorable Moses Kuria, all CSs and Principal Secretaries present, the Chair SRC, Madam Lynn Mengich, chairpersons of independent commissions, all national and local leaders present, all invited distinguished guests. Your Excellency, sir, with your permission, at this point, allow me to now call the Chair SRC, Madam Lynn Mengich, to make her welcoming remarks. Tunaweza tukamkaribisha kwa makofi.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, William Samoei Ruto, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, Your Excellency, Prime Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, Your Excellency, the Chairperson, Council of Governors, Anne Waiguru, Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, Cabinet Secretaries present, Your Excellencies, County Governors, Chief of Defense Forces, General Francis Ogola, Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, Chairpersons of Constitutional Commissions and Independent Offices, Principal Secretaries, Members of Parliament, Chairpersons of State Corporations, Members of Constitutional Commissions and Independent Offices, Chief Executive Officers and Accounting Officers, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors present, development partners, civil society organizations, non-governmental and faith-based organizations, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the steering committee of the conference, it is with great humility and honor that we welcome you all to this third Wage Bill Conference. We are indeed indebted to your presence of such a high-powered leadership from the national and county governments. This goes to show the commitment and seriousness that the leadership exhibits on the matters of the public wage bill. This commitment to the public wage bill has come from the distant past, transcending several government administrations. We recall the first, second National Wage Bill Conference in 2014 and 2019 respectively. I'm delighted to note that significant progress has been made on the implementation of the resolutions from both conferences over the years. The National Wage Bill Conference embodies the spirit of collaboration and a whole-of-government approach to matters of national importance. It is in this spirit that resolutions from the past conferences have immensely contributed to the positive trend in the wage bill to revenue ratio, which has come down from 51.4% in the financial year 2017-18 to 47.6% in the financial year 2021-22, and further projected to 46.64% in the financial year 2022-23. However, a lot more needs to be done. Your Excellency, we specifically thank you for the summit resolution under your leadership that resolved SRC, IGRTC, and COG to convene this conference. The conveners, in the spirit of a whole-of-government approach, co-opted the Public Service Commission, the Ministry of Public Service and Performance and Delivery, and the State Corporations Advisory Committee to constitute a steering committee that has convened this conference. After 3 days of intense consultations, all delegates have resolved to take actions now towards 35%. This is a journey towards realizing a wage bill to revenue ratio of 35% by 2028. As we are all aware, the Public Finance Management Act and Regulation of 2015 set a clear threshold of wage bill to revenue ratio for the two tiers of government at no more than 35%. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this conference has brought together the national and county governments, private sector, non-governmental organizations, civil society, faith-based organizations, experts in productivity, and academia. The Conference Steering Committee is pleased to report that the presentations, engagements at the plenary, and several caucus sessions have been enriching and inspiring. The delegates have benefited from presentations, discussions, and sharing experiences. Consequently, everyone is well aligned with the vision to realize the towards 35% aspiration target. In addition to the deliberations during the conference, I'm pleased to let you know that under the leadership of the steering committee, a technical team comprising of staff from COG, PSC, the Ministry of Public Service, the SCAC, Ministry of Labor, IGRTC, and SRC, Auditor General, and Controller of Budget, developed technical papers that will be shared with all the delegates after this conference. These papers provide further insights into the presentations that are a synopsis of the technical papers. The 2.5 days have created a shared understanding of the public wage bill in Kenya, its profound impact on our national, county, and institutional financial resources, service delivery to Wanjiku, and economic development of our country. Through shared understanding, the delegates converged on resolutions that shall be presented here today. Resolutions that shall propel Kenya to inch closer to the 35% wage bill to revenue ratio. We owe it to wananchi to collectively achieve this target. Your Excellency, we are extremely grateful for your leadership in this wage bill discourse. The next generation is watching our footsteps. We then can agree here and resolve not to bequeath to them an unsustainable wage bill, but rather a wage bill that is affordable and fiscally sustainable. A wage bill that will not crowd out resources for development and service delivery, and which then propels this country to the next level of economic empowerment of its people. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude my welcome remarks, the journey towards 35% public wage bill to revenue ratio is possible by 2028. It is within sight. We need not, therefore, defer to the next generation what this generation must do, and we must do by 2028. It is only right that we fold our sleeves and make it happen for this generation. With your leadership, Your Excellency, we are all aligned, and through collaboration and a whole-of-government approach, we shall succeed. God bless you. God bless Kenya. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mengich. At this point, Your Excellency would like to now proceed to a panel discussion, and allow me to invite Commissioner Wangui Muchiri to take her seat, and she's going to introduce the panel that is going to be having this discussion. Your Excellency, the objective of the panel discussion, it's a roundtable discussion bringing home the current status of the role of leadership and the way forward on matters wage bill and revenue. Commissioner Wangui Muchiri, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Gitonga. Thank you, Your Excellency. Allow me to stand on the protocols already established as I invite the panel to this discussion. Our first participant will be none other than the SRC chairperson, Madam Lynn Mengich. If you could please make your way down, and a round of applause as she does. She's worked very hard hosting this panel. Our next panel discussant will be the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, the Honorable Moses Kuria. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing us with your presence. We will also have the Council of Governors Chairperson, Her Excellency, Madam Anne Waiguru. Please, let's give her a hearty hand of applause as she makes her way down. And last but not least, our keynote speaker for today, the Honorable Retired Chief Justice, Mr. Maraga, please, if you could take your seat, please. Thank you, sir. And as we do, if we could kindly be upstanding for the really key chief guest today as he takes his seat. Let us welcome him kindly with a hearty handshake. Thank you, Your Excellency. We may now take our seats. To begin this panel discussion, we shall begin with you, Chairperson of the SRC. Thank you for taking us through a quick summary of the intense discussions on matters wage bill and revenue. You did say in your speech that it is possible to achieve this 35% in our generation. Is it really? How do we get to the journey towards 35% by 2028?
Thank you. Over the last 2.5 days, the participants in this conference have deliberated. And the reason why I said it is possible, it's because of what the participants have agreed. It's not what we have said as SRC we must do. And I just want to share with you very quickly some of the discussions that makes me say it is possible. The first reason that was given is that we need to focus on the denominator. That is the productivity side. And the discussion was, yes, we can talk about managing the current wage bill, but if we improve our productivity, summed up by 2 words, that we must bake a bigger cake. And that means we must then enable the private sector to grow. That is how our economy will grow. It was also summarized by expand more with less. Can we achieve more with the resources that we have? Whether it is financial resources, whether it is human resources. Let us do more with less. We then got presentations from Malaysia, South Africa, and they shared their journey. And we were therefore convinced that not only is it possible, but the impact is really positive to the economies that have embraced productivity. Back home, we were also encouraged that our own institutions have begun the journey. We got presentation from KenGen and the Kenya Bureau of Standards and the Ministry of Health. They have started the journey, and therefore we are convinced that not only have we seen best practice from other countries, but we can do it. Now, secondly, there was discussion around employee numbers, and that as a developing country, we will still need to recruit in healthcare, in education, in security. So if we must continue to recruit, and yet we have a wage bill issue, then we've got to do something around how we are managing the staff establishments that we have today. So these delegates agreed that we must relook at our staff establishments. Number 3, there was a lot of discussions around duplication of functions, duplication of roles, duplication of mandates. But the question that was asked in the end is, what happened to the previous reports? Abdul Kadir report was mentioned several times. What happened? And the question the delegates asked is, will we be back here 2 years down the line to ask the same thing? And it was then agreed that action must be taken now. We do not want to come back and ask the same one. Now, the other issue that was discussed at length is waste of public resources, that there is a lot of waste. If we can just be more accountable and manage the resources we have, we might actually not have a wage bill problem. Are we managing our resources? Lastly, and lastly, question about culture. We acknowledge that every year, Auditor General, Controller Budget, they release reports. But what happens to these reports? Are we accountable? The presentation shared our statistics on where Kenya is ranking on corruption. We looked at where Kenya is ranking on productivity. We looked at statistics on how citizens rank services in Kenya, whether they are receiving services as expected. And we could actually see that there is a problem. And we concluded here that there has to be a cultural transformation if we've got to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Lim. My next question, thank you, is to you, CS. There's been a lot of talk about activity versus input, output and outcomes. As the custodian of public service measurement in this government, what is your take on Kenya's model of performance contracting and performance management? Are we measuring the right things?
Thank you, Wangui. I look at it from two fronts. One, performance management is much more encompassing than performance contracting. Performance contracting is just one of the measures that is supposed to contribute to performance management, and it's much broader than that. So the conversation that we are having within government is how can we be able to broaden the performance management framework so that it focuses more on productivity, that it measures outcomes and results as opposed to events and processes, which is the current. So that is currently undergoing some review and transformation, and we look forward to the beginning of the new fiscal year to be able to have a new regime that is, one, much broader, and two, that is really focused on outcomes. And performance contracting and performance management tools are supposed to answer to the needs of a particular administration. So what we're also doing is asking ourselves, how can our current performance management framework be a tool for this administration to achieve the commitments that we made to our people. Ultimately, we have to do that because the issue of productivity is key. And also, as the chair has said, on the issue of generational equity, that do we want to, as a current generation, to leave all the obligations and all these problems to future generations. Let me tell you that these fiscal issues, because this ultimately fiscal issue, is actually, it is hiding some real good progress that we are making on other fronts. For example, when we make progress on our exchange rate, when we control our inflation, when we have our GDP growing this year expected at 5.6%, and then that is wiped out by all these fiscal issues that come with recurrent expenditure. And finally, we want to broaden this discussion and ask ourselves, is this just an economic issue? No, for me, it's a moral issue, it's an ethical issue. How can we have 1 million people who are the public servants consuming 41% of our revenues and leaving the other 53 million people to consume 59%? In fact, I would question the other 53 million people. Why are they so patient with us? Because there's a moral issue and there's an ethical issue of how can we have just 1 million people living on the back of another 53 million people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, CS. Wow. Let me move over to the county governments before I come to you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, Madam Anne Waiguru, the county governments are at an average of 45% wage bill to revenue ratio, according to the financial year 2022-2023. As you serve your last term as governor, what is your parting shot on matters productivity and the wage bill target of 35% in county governments?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think it's very interesting, the conversation about the wage bill and what it is that we can do. And I think as a nation, it has come at the right time. Indeed, the county governments at the moment are at about 42, an average of 42%. That means that there are those with a lot higher, and then there are those who with a lot less, closer to 35. But I would like, before even we discuss in broad terms and maybe make proposals, bring us into perspective as to why the wage bill of the county governments has been growing. And I think this has been discussed in the last 2 days here. Just from statistics alone, if you look at health facilities, we started with 8,466 health facilities in 2013. We are now at 16,655. Doctors were at 874. We are now at 4,398. Nurses were at 6,620. We are at 31,923. Extension officers were 1,725, and we are right now at 8,078. And now we have started the UHC program. We are going to increase and include our CHPs into the wage bill. And therefore, with all that and the payments for NSSF and all, this is very critical that we have this conversation of how do we achieve all this, because the things that I have mentioned are indeed critical. And not to mention that we also inherited mostly on the county's side, bloated public services from the defunct local authorities, and those people being protected under the permanent and pensionable. So even if you were to do your restructuring, you would not be able to move them. So you have to increase for critical services that are devolved, and at the same time be able to maintain the current staff that you have. The other very critical issue is that revenues to counties has not been increasing in the commensurate manner. For all the functions that we have, if you look at where our revenues are pegged, they are pegged on audited accounts of maybe 3 years or so behind, as compared to 3 to 2 years behind, as opposed to the current year that has just passed, where the percentage of revenue going to counties will be a little higher. If the percentage of the revenue to counties was higher, and if counties put measures in place to increase their revenue allocation, they would be able to lower the average, the wage bill average per county. But this is one issue that we cannot skirt around. I think we need to have a conversation about functions and resources following those functions. And then, as Chair of SRC has said, maybe we need to look also at our structures and see how they are populated and how do we deal with the issue of rationalizing those structures so that you have critical staff that are required for the critical services that counties are supposed to implement, the functions that counties are supposed to implement. Now, on the issue of my parting shot, what is it that I would say? I think this country needs to look very deeply, introspectively within. Many times we come to conferences and have conversations about what we need to do, but when we go to implement, we implement for the first 6 months or so, and then the resolutions fall by the wayside. A culture of accountability, as has been said, is critical. And those in the public service who have been given the privilege to serve in the public service have to answer that very critical question that has been asked by Moses Kuria. Are we supposed to be spending our resources on unproductive activities as opposed to resources for development? And what is this amount of money that we should cap and say, whether we are a county government or at the national government, what is this figure? And that figure has been said. We have a target right now of 35, but is that the ideal? And finally, inculcating a culture of productivity. I will say in this panel, Your Excellency, if we checked the productivity of the staff, both at national and county level, and especially the middle to lower cadre, you will find that the productivity is very low, because you will find one job that can be done by one person is probably being carried out by 3-4 people. But this is a very sensitive conversation when you're talking about a country where everybody is aspiring to join this public service. Maybe we need to culturalize our people and change the perspective of our people so that we are not all looking to join the public service, and as Chair mentioned, maybe start focusing more on the private sector and informal and informal sectors. And finally, once we set up the structures, once we have them running, maintaining those structures and holding those in leadership accountable, and for us, mentoring, coaching, and passing the skills to younger people so that they understand where we came from when we came to this decision, so that we're not rolling back the gains that we have had. Thank you.
Very well put, Madam Agoro. Thank you so much for that comment, which flowed very well the discussions we have had, Your Excellency, with the former Head of Public Service, Budhaura, and Oginde on leadership, sir. Your Excellency, which brings me to your question. We were challenged as leadership because most of the people here are leaders in your government. And we were challenged that we talk the walk more than we walk the talk. And so my question to you, sir, is, when we are surrounded and reports have come through of wastage of public resources, wastage in public institutions, impunity, and largesse, give us your thought, Your Excellency. How can we set the tone on accountability, but also consequence management in public service?
Thank you very much, Wangoi. And first, let me congratulate the teams that have brought together this conference. I remember we met at the request of the SRC to put together this conference so that we can reflect on the two summits that we had before and how much progress has been made. As has been said here, there has been progress. Came down from 51% wage bill to revenue to 46 now, and we aspire to deal with this challenge in the next 3 years to bring it to 35. And the success of any country, the success of any plan or initiative will stand or fall on leadership. I don't think any one of us need to be persuaded as to whether it is the right thing to do. The questions answered. Is it the correct thing to get our wage bill to 35% as a percentage of revenue? Yes, it's the right thing. Is it doable? Yes, it's doable. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. Right? So it is up to us as leaders to decide whether we want to do this or we want to play to the gallery, we want to talk the walk, as you've said, or we want to walk, or we want to walk the talk. That's the decision we must make. And it boils down to the fact that decisions to be made are not easy. They're not comfortable. They're not popular. And it is the reason why I insist that those of us who are leaders, who have the privilege to be leaders, must understand our calling. We have been elected, all of us seated here, and occupying leadership position, appointed, nominated, employed as leaders. And we have been given responsibility to do the right thing, to make the right decisions, even if they are not popular. And you know, the challenge we've had as a country is that we all know what is right. We have all documented studies, programs, resolutions. But when it's time for the rubber to meet the road, when it is time to implement, it becomes difficult. We have talked about the Abdikadir report. We have talked about the various resolutions of the wage bill before. But we must get to the point where those of us who are privileged to be leaders must be ready to lead, to serve, to make a difference, and not necessarily to be popular. We have a choice to make. And if you want people to clap for you all the time, if you want to be a popular guy, you have an option. You can be a comedian. It's also a very well-paying job. And it boils down to some of the, let me give you two examples. You have a whole cabinet minister. We are having a conversation about drug abuse, alcoholism. And you have leaders who are saying, no, you shouldn't be closing bars. You are mistreating people. Really? Okay, because what are we chasing? Popularity. Okay. The other day, we have a doctor's challenge. You can hardly pay because we've said, there are real issues we want to deal with. You have leaders who it is in their place, including governors, saying we support the doctor's strike. Really? If you support the doctor's strike, pay the money they are asking for. So we must stop chasing what is popular. We must go after what is right. And so, we have three issues from where I sit in this matter of the wage bill. Number one, we must deal with the numbers. The current ratio is that we have so many support staff, and the push from the public is everybody wants a job. Mr. President, give us positions for the military, for the police, for this, for that. We must be deliberate about creating alternative pathways to employment. Public service is not a place for employment. We must build alternative, and that is why, deliberately, as a government, we have said we're going to implement programs that will create opportunities for employment. And we are going to be deliberate, we are going to be intentional, and we are going to push hard. Under our housing program, our plan is to create 1 million jobs. We are at 140,000 as I talk to this audience. It is a program that we all agreed on. For example, housing was in the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, it was in the manifesto of Azimio. When it got to implementation, it was a problem. Why? Because we want to be popular. When do you know what the right thing is? We are going to be intentional and deliberate because it is the way we are going to create jobs and not load on Kenyans under the public service. Number two, we've changed the law. I've signed a new law I've signed the new legislation into law. We're going to create opportunities in the digital space. there are tremendous opportunities in the digital space. That way, we can create alternative pathways and not overload public service. We're going to export our labor. We're going to create jobs in our special economic zones. On Friday next week, I will be in Athi River with American companies who are bringing 20,000 jobs to Kenya because we've given additional incentives on our special economic zones. It is the direction we must go as a nation. I want to encourage us. We have millions of young people out of school, out of college, out of university. They deserve employment opportunities. We owe it to them as a nation to create opportunities for them. It is not in the public service. The public service cannot accommodate all of them. That's why we must be bold, we must be courageous to push the limits in other areas so that we can get more young people in Kenya in employment. They will contribute to baking a bigger cake, as was said by the chair of SRC. I also see an opportunity for us to enhance our revenue, because if you are talking of wage bill as a percentage of revenue, we must also look at how do we raise revenue? How do we make sure that counties are looking at own source revenue? How are they collecting more money? How do we digitize Kenya Revenue Authority? I want to confirm to the country that we are well on course. I believe that we can raise an extra 500 billion, if not an extra trillion, just by digitizing the Kenya Revenue Authority and getting money that currently we are not getting. It is possible for us to support our counties to raise more money so that we can have the ratio of wage bill to revenue in the right place. And number three, we must deal firmly, decisively with corruption. We must. There is a lot of wastage. We must. There's wastage, there is pilferage, there is outright theft in the public space, and with a lot of impunity. We can put more resources into development. And I think we have now stabilized what we needed to stabilize. We will now confront the monster of corruption head-on going forward. Whether it is in counties, whether it is in the national government, just imagine a simple audit of people working for government has revealed that we have 2,100 so far people with fake certificates working for government. And just a simple audit. And from this conference, Madam Chair, I hope we are going to add one more resolution on fake certificates. Those who have earned money using fake certificates should refund us our public money. Isn't it equivalent to obtaining by false pretense or something? You know? And those who are in government offices today with fake certificates, they should leave. They should resign and go away and look for money to pay us public resources that they have earned falsely. And that chain continues. That chain continues. Good people, we just must do what we must do. And for your information, I intend to do it. Yes. And I am ready to take the consequences. I'm already Sakayo, so there is no problem. If the country is going to get where we want it to go, I don't mind names. Yeah? I don't mind names. So long as we get the country where it should go. So, I don't know whether I've answered your question, but that is my position. I know we have set a target of 2028, Madam Chair. I think it's doable earlier. I think we can do it earlier. We can at least review it by 1 year, down by 1 year. We can do it by 2027. I think it's doable. Because we are burdening the next generation of Kenyans. And you know, speaking to the matter Moses mentioned, that 1 million of us who are working, we are taking away 1.1 trillion of the 2.2 trillion we collect. So 1 million of us. And you know the irony of this is that when we are asked, those of us who have the privilege to earn from the taxes of Kenyans, when we are asked to contribute 1.5% so that other Kenyans can have a job, we have a big problem. Not forgetting that there are another 50 million Kenyans who earn nothing, as we earn something. And they pay taxes the way we do. Surely, good people. At least us, we have the privilege of earning something. We are being asked to make a contribution. Those ones, they pay taxes, they earn zero. And they are still around. And they are not complaining, as we are complaining. Really? So this is a conversation, the honest conversation we must have as a country. And I intend to lead from the front on this
Fantastic.
one.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. We are not going to sacrifice progress on the altar of popularity, and we are going to make radical measures, take tough choices to achieve what we must. Thank you, Your Excellency. A round of applause for the President, please. Which dovetails very well to you, Chief Justice Emeritus. This morning you gave us a deep dive on the conundrum of leadership. And it was clear that there is an execution gap. As you speak to the execution gap, let me challenge you also just to lean and glean from your experiences in the judiciary, that when on the issue of consequence management in public service, that we would like to move forward, as His Excellency has eloquently put it. In public sector, as we had discussed, when we have a problem, we run to the judiciary, and that case goes on for quite a while as public money is being spent. Every month, that person is still being spent. And if it is the private sector, 15-minute boardroom discussion, the matter is settled. How can the judiciary help us expedite and enable national and county governments to do what they must do in order to have an efficient public service? Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Wangui. The judiciary leadership understands the role the judiciary plays in the socio-economic development of this country. You will recall that in 2003, 2004, when the performance contracting idea came up first, it was fiercely opposed by the then leadership of the judiciary. But with the new constitution and the obligations that are there, that the judiciary is exercising the authority of the people and is accountable. The new leadership in the judiciary, my predecessor, Dr. Mutunga, and the leadership in the judiciary sat down and said, look, we must comply with the Constitution. Then what the judiciary did was to sit down, get all the judges, the leadership and the representative of the judges, and say, look, we cannot have commercial disputes lying in courts for years on end, because we are holding a lot of investment funds that would go into the economy. So the question of contracting and how much each one of the judges is going to do was a thorny issue. But the leadership faced it on and said, no, this must be done. When I came in, we got the judges themselves into groups and said, look, we are under obligation to perform and perform optimally. You are not going to have a case lying under judgment or in a case which you have decided for years before you get the judgment out. We agreed, the judges themselves set the targets. They set the targets. Then the judiciary leadership looked at those targets and assessed whether or not we were only talking about numbers or we are also incorporating quality work in that. And came up with the performance assessment and the contracting, and the judges themselves and the magistrates started working towards those targets. I'm happy to report that quite a number of matters were resolved, and the speed at which the cases are being disposed now is much, much higher. The other thing that we looked at was the issue of alternative dispute resolution. We embraced it. It is in the Constitution. We embraced it and said, look, there are very many matters that can be disposed of through alternative dispute resolution. So we came up with mediation. Arbitration is there. We told the judges to deliberately look at the issues, cases before them, and see which ones can be resolved through those alternative dispute resolution. When you talk about cases, Your Excellency, cases of succession, succession at the end of the day boils down to the distribution of the deceased estate. And if you're going to be mechanical and say you want to hear these cases and decide, you will get the siblings going out of court, in fact, and getting arms to kill each other. But when we came up with mediation and referred most of those cases to mediation, quite a number of people were happy going out. The siblings discussing those cases and going out and dealing with them. So that's how we have gone about it. And now we came the time of utilizing technology. You know, from the COVID-19, 2020, most of the operations came to a standstill. As the leadership of the judiciary, we said, look, we can't. We are offering essential services, and we must find a way of dealing with this. And we came up with the harnessing technology. We had challenges. We had a lot of opposition, sadly even from part of the government, Your Excellency, and more even from the stakeholders. But we were firm, and we started virtual courts. We started electronic filing of cases. Your Excellency, it is now common knowledge that the courts are able to operate, quite a number of them. The Court of Appeal, for instance, doesn't have any virtual sittings, physical sittings anymore. They are disposing cases through virtual hearings. So that is what it requires. You require leadership. Like now, we are finishing this conference, And there are going to be a number of resolutions that are going to be made. Unless you have a courageous leadership, unless you have a committed leadership, we will come back here 5 years down the line and say, look, the resolutions from this conference, maybe only a third have been implemented. And we go on going in circles. So what I would, as I said in the morning, what we need is that clear leadership which understands its role, which understands its mandate, which knows that it is answerable to the public. And more importantly, Your Excellency, I'm happy with your statements. Yesterday and the day before, listening to the discussions that were here, what came out clearly in my mind is we need political will. Political will at both levels of government to move quite a number of things. And with His Excellency at the helm and in front, and the governors following suit, I can't see why we cannot achieve or get near achieving what we require to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief Justice. Before I go to Prime Cabinet Secretary, let me ask CS Moses Kuria. Your ministry is the custodian of the IPPD. How can we ensure that all public sector institutions migrate to a unified payroll system to mitigate wastage, double pay, ghost workers, manual pay, fake pay, etc., etc.? Thank you.
Thank you, Wangui. On the issue of cleanup of our payroll, we had given ourselves 12 months to ensure that everybody migrates. I've been under instructions that has to be completed by December 2024. That everybody at all levels of government must be under the IPPD system. And we are also going to work with the Council of Governors to ensure that even casual workers, even somebody on 1-day contract is on some system one way or the other. Even the issue of casual workers is not reason enough for someone to be outside a payroll system. Further, you are aware of what we are doing on our health space, that we are migrating everybody, all Kenyans, into what we are calling the digital health. And as part of that digital health migration, we have to take data of all Kenyans. And that data will start with public servants. So my ministry is working with the Ministry of Health to ensure that as we migrate to the new social health scheme, and we take the details of workers, of Kenyans, starting with public workers, that will also be an exercise for census. So, as I said before, on the issue of ghost workers, because the people from our religious space have failed to fully exercise ghost, we are going to use technology to ensure that this issue of ghost workers disappear. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Let me ask us to focus our attention on the podium as I ask the Honorable Prime Cabinet Secretary this next question. We are currently operating on an average of 65% of approved staff establishment in the public service. If we were to recruit to 100%, the wage bill will grow from 1.1 trillion to 1.8 trillion. What is your take on this number, sir?
Thank you. You can understand it's awkward to be speaking from that podium when the president is here. That is the quickest way to get my salary slashed. So, Your Excellency and all who are here, I'll just try and address the issue of the numbers that you have mentioned. Because right now, at 65%, I think we are spending 1.4 trillion, 1.1. And if we move to 100%, we shall hit 1.8 trillion. Clearly, that is not tenable. And therefore, without really repeating myself in terms of what has been said here, because I think they've been captured, it is for us to resolve to address this challenge of the huge wage bill. In simple terms, a bloated wage bill means more debt, it means more taxes. Because it has a priority call on the consolidated fund. So more wages, more debt. More wages, more tax. The president is always told, you are taxing. Messages come, listen to your people. Some of us here engage in that chorus, actually criticizing and even emphasizing that he's overtaxing. What are you doing in your own center of authority to shed off the excess weight? That should be the fundamental question here. Previously, we have had retrenchment, we have had the golden handshakes in the past, all targeted at trying to address the issue of the wage bill. So if we have to get to where we are, we then have to figure out how do we leverage on technology as a critical intervention on addressing the wage bill. How does Parliament play its role? How do the county governments play their role? And how do we prioritize our overall programs in the economy so that we do not suck the energy out of the economy by a bloated wage bill? Finally, Your Excellency, with your permission, just to emphasize that as we discuss the issue of the bloated wage bill, we must also address ourselves to what is the real wage? What is the living wage? Because if inflation continues to bite us because we are not taking quick decisions, then we shall not just be talking of a bloated wage bill in the context of numbers of people employed, but we shall be talking of a wage bill because people are trying to chase more value for their shilling, and that again eats into it. And finally, the Chief Justice is here. We must also ask ourselves, when courts make decisions, particularly the labor court, when you give awards, what is the scientific process that you have used to arrive at that wage that you're actually awarding? And what does it mean for the broader economy? I think that is my end of my
That is fantastic. Thank you. We had a question for the Deputy President, which he will address during his remarks regarding a whole of government approach, allowing us to bring this to a close, Your Excellency, with your final remarks. In this forum, the one thing that we deliberated on was the culture of public service. And we agreed we need to regenerate and renew our culture in public service if we are to achieve the better model that you have asked us to do. And my question is, tumesikia mambo matatu, we just want two things today. Your Excellency, describe to us in very short adjectives so that we can go back as your soldiers and we carry out those instructions. What are your expectations? How do you describe an effective public service culture? And on the same breath, what do you want us to stop doing as a public service, as far as culture is, to be effective and to achieve this 35% that we're talking about? Thank you.
Bottom line, we must address ourselves to productivity. I think really, bottom line. And productivity for us to achieve comes in different facets. Number one, employing the right people to do the right job. As you've heard, we need the dichotomy of our public service. Do we have a public service that is fit for purpose? Number two, the Kenyan human capital is acclaimed world over. International companies will look out for Kenyan human capital. Private sector celebrate Kenyan human capital because of their productivity. But in the public service, it's the opposite. We must ask ourselves, why is it that Kenyan labor is productive internationally in the private sector and not in public service? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. And we need to deal with it by addressing what you've just said, culture. It cannot continue to be business as usual. So we need a paradigm shift in the way we manage public service, the way we hire public service, the way we deploy public service, and the whole trajectory of numbers is right in there. And it is the reason why we have a whole State Department today of public service management, performance contracting and management, so that we can deploy a public service that will support the entire economy. Efficient, productive, paid, but delivering. So this is my take on what I think of what the public service should look like and will look like. It is going to take the whole of government approach. We will need leadership from the counties, from the national government, from the legislature, from our judiciary. It's going to be a collaboration, a working together of all the arms of government to make sure that we have a fit for purpose public service, and one that is sensitive to cost. It must be competitive, it must be efficient, it must be professional. And again, we must address ourselves to the subject of wastage, of pilferage, of theft. We must address ourselves to that. And the fact that we are having this conference in this context is a very good thing, so that we can speak to each other truthfully and honestly, understanding where we are as a country and living within our means. We have a budget every year that has a fiscal deficit. 500, in fact, in 2022, we had a fiscal deficit of $1 trillion, meaning we were seeking to spend $1 trillion which we didn't have. We pulled it to 800 billion, we pulled it again to 600 billion. As we go towards, in the next 3 years, as we go towards having a wage bill to revenue of 35%, I will equally be driving to get a balanced budget, so that we spend the money we can raise. The money we cannot raise, we just be responsible, we relax until we raise the money so that we can spend it. Absolutely. I mean, it's just being responsible, it is being honest with ourselves, and it's being reasonable. Asante.
Thank you. Thank you very much. On my own behalf and the steering committee, it's been an honor hosting you, Your Excellency, on this panel, as well as our honorable guests. I think mambo kwa ground shift, and the line to SRC for more salaries has reduced, Chair. Our work is going to become less. Let me allow our honored guests to take back their seats and hand over to state functions. Thank you.
Let's put another round of applause, please, for our panelists and also for Commissioner Wangui Mushiri for handling that panel. Just as a reminder, there is a pending question which His Excellency the Deputy President will answer during his remarks on IBEC and the whole government approach. Your Excellency, sir, to move this, we may take our seats. To move this from a talk shop to action, there has to be resolutions and commitments that will be made. So at this point, Your Excellency, sir, I'll invite the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Chairperson, Mrs. Lynn Mengich, to come and read and submit the resolutions made so far. We can put our hands together as we invite her to, or welcome her, to come and read the resolutions.
Thank you. I'm honored to read these these resolutions, which is actually resolutions from all of us in this room and those who were there on Monday up to today morning. So the first resolution is all ministries, departments, and agencies, state corporations at the national government level to refine their strategies and action plans to achieve a wage bill to revenue ratio of 35% by June 2028. These strategies and action plans to be submitted to their respective cabinet secretary by 30th June 2024 for approval. The National Treasury and the Controller of Budget to progressively monitor the trajectory and ensure that provision of personnel emoluments do not exceed 35% threshold by 30th June 2028. The lead actor will be SRC and the SCAC, and collaborators is National Treasury, COB, Ministry of Public Service, CEOs of state corporations. Resolution number 2. All county executive committee members for public service to refine the strategies and action plans to achieve a wage bill to revenue ratio of 35%. The strategies and action plans to be submitted to the County Executive Committee by June 2024 for approval. The county governments and the Controller of Budget to progressively monitor and ensure that provisions of personnel emoluments do not exceed the 35% threshold by 30th June 2028. Resolution number 3, the public service institutions to review and rationalize their staff establishments with a view to align to affordability, fiscal sustainability, right composition, skill sets, and fit-for-purpose organization structures that will facilitate the institutions to achieve the 35% by 2028. Resolution number 4, review the Kenyan model for performance management by December 2024 to shift from measurement of activities and inputs to outputs and outcomes. Institutionalize measurement of productivity, integrate the various measurement systems, and create clear linkage to a reward and sanctions system. Resolution number 5, all institutions of the national and county governments to adopt and build capacity on performance contracting as an accountability tool in line with medium-term plan 4 with effect from 1st July 2024. In this regard, public service institutions to incorporate productivity measurements, process reengineering, technology, and skills development as key drivers to implementation. Resolution number 6, all institutions at both levels of government to migrate their payrolls to the Human Resource Information System Kenya by June 2025. Further, manual, multiple, and standalone payroll systems to cease. Resolution number 7, eliminate duplications and mitigate overlap of mandates, roles and functions across state corporations, national and county governments, constitutional commissions, and independent offices. Resolution number 8, initiate a government-wide cultural transformation to embed the national values and principles and institute a mechanism for reward and consequence management in pursuit of a transformed public service culture. Resolution number 9, submit the resolutions to the summit for adoption and thereafter constitute an intergovernmental multi-agency team to implement the resolutions. And Your Excellency, you requested that we add resolution number 10. But since it is these delegates who passed that resolution, I'll ask them to give me the yes to add a resolution on fake certificates. Can we add that? Yes. So, Your Excellency, we shall add that resolution because that is what the delegates have all agreed. So thank you. So with that, I will now hand over the resolutions to the national government and the county government through His Excellency the President for their implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Next, on behalf of the county government, would like to hear their commitments. And at this point, I'll now call upon the Chair Council of Governors and Governor Kirinyaga County, Governor Anne Waiguru, to present her commitments or the commitments of the county government on behalf of the county government. Welcome, Madam Anne Waiguru.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, Your Excellency, Prime Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, my fellow governors present, Your Excellencies, Cabinet Secretaries, heads of commissions and independent offices, heads of institutions present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. In the past 2 days have been quite enlightening. The topics and discourse resonate deeply with the desire of the citizens of this country envisioned when they promulgated the Constitution of 2010. The dream was that quality services that are affordable and accessible will reach every corner of this nation. I am delighted to note that all key actors from the 2 levels of government who must take action for us to race towards 35% as per our theme and the broad objective of this premier conference participated in this conference. This is a clear testament that when we focus on a particular matter together, it is indeed doable. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, let me add my voice and state my key take-homes from this conference, and this on behalf of my colleagues. Number one, we should continue to strike a balance between service delivery needs and the revenue shared between the two levels of government. This has been ably shared by Excellency Governors. The relationship between various staff establishments and the optimal levels needed to offer the services must be reviewed so that we don't make decisions in a vacuum. Number three, that the new or enhanced development speaks to an added human resource and has direct impact on the wage bill. Number four, productivity mainstreaming needs to start from the top, where we as governors are committing to lead and cascade it to the lowest level, and requires also a paradigm shift in the ways we do business in our public service. Number five, on the use of technology, that is not an option and should be a perennial discussion and also implemented. It is proven that the use of technology has many benefits, from the reduction of leakages of resources, facilitating higher collection of revenue, reduction of processes, and also the human resource. A classic example is at Huduma Center, Your Excellency, which reduced the time it takes to receive any government services. Number six, best practices and emerging good trends are within us. We must celebrate and embrace them. Let us therefore celebrate and learn from counties and other MDAs that have consistently attained the 35%. Number seven, the mentorship and coaching is key to generational transfer of good culture that all of us must consider for impact. And finally, for the counties, we need to finalize the costing and transfer of functions that have been devolved, and as well as their attendant resources. The raft of measures and strategies discussed and agreed upon in this conference and the past conferences must continue to be implemented at all levels of government, without which we will be gathered in vain. The issue of productivity being key, Your Excellency, must cascade across even county governments. And on behalf of my colleagues, I would like to give a commitment to the implementation of the main target of reducing the wage bill by 35% to 35% by 2027. We will endeavor to do that. Your Excellency, we will also review our structures to ensure that they are aligned. We will also commit on behalf of all the governments that will also review all the staff that are working in the county governments to confirm that we also at the level of the county governments weed out any individuals with fake certificates. Your Excellency, that is the only way to improve our productivity. In conclusion, I would like to share from the quote by Napoleon Hill, which states that the starting point of all achievements is desire. Our desired outcome of this conference is to see the wage bill go down. This is achievable. The current administration has given us the space to thrive. Let us take advantage and prove to all the naysayers that indeed the public service is the cornerstone of service delivery. Therefore, let us take a quantum leap and huge steps to take our country to the next level. As county governments, we commit to implement the resolutions arising from this conference. God bless you and God bless Kenya.
Next, Your Excellency, we'll hear from the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management, Honorable Moses Kuria, who will in turn invite the Prime Cabinet Secretary when he is done. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, Prime Cabinet Secretary, Chair of the Council of Governors, Governors Present, Cabinet Secretaries, Principal Secretaries, and all protocols observed. The Ministry of Public Service is cognizant that the issue of reducing the wage bill from the current 46% of our revenue to that 5%. It is not a nice to have, it's a must to have. It is not an option, it's an imperative. And in this regard, the ministry is also cognizant of the fact that this is not the only issue that we have to deal with to reduce our recurrent expenditure, which continues to frustrate our ambitions. As we open our balance sheet every year, we open with an irrevocable commitment to fund several programs, to fund our free primary program, to fund our free secondary program, to fund our fertilizer subsidy program, to fund our social protection, to fund our counties, to fund our NGCDF. I don't know why anybody would want to be the president of this country. Because even before we open the year, we are opening with so many commitments which are irrevocable and which are non-discretionary. So to add to this issue of the wage bill shows that we really are already operating within a very constrained fiscal space, and so therefore we must do. And in this regard, my ministry commits on behalf of national government to do 4 things. 1, I will be shortly moving to cabinet to seek cabinet approval that all establishment, all staff establishment as approved, subject to cabinet approval, will remain suspended until review of the same is done, so that we can ask ourselves whether those establishments make sense or not. Secondly, my ministry is going to spearhead a government-wide program of looking at our processes, reviewing our processes, asking ourselves which processes are not making sense, asking ourselves which processes can be done using digitization, so that as we review our establishment, that we are able to have a public service that is fit for purpose. That, Your Excellency, as has been mentioned in the commitment, is to ensure that by December 2024, we migrate everybody from the president to the smallest person, to the driver within public service, to a system of performance management, and that one we will implement. Finally, Your Excellency, is on the issue of training. All public servants must be trained. To have public servants who are not trained is like taking someone from the streets, giving them a gun, recruiting them into the police service without taking them to Kikanjo and expecting them to perform. Everyone must be trained so that we can all act in a consistent, coherent manner so as to build our value system within the public service. Thank you, Excellency. Now it is my pleasure to invite the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the one on Henry Quick, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, my colleagues in Cabinet, the Chair of SRC, distinguished governors, participants, good afternoon. I had an opportunity to say something when I was there, so I will just limit my remarks so that we can give the President ample time to make a more detailed pronouncement on this issue. But first, let me commend the SRC and all the people who have put this convention together, because indeed it is a very significant gathering that is aimed at shaping and improving our economy. That is absolutely important. The second thing is just to be a little bit maybe philosophical. Ladies and gentlemen, you know Bomas is famous. Resolutions in Bomas sometimes are bitter, sour, or sweet. But today we are gathered here on a very fundamental issue. And what I want to acknowledge is that we are all resolving that the target of 35% to revenue ratio on the wage bill is significant, It's important, it's a critical target. You are resolving to be part of a team that is now going to be enjoined to Zakayo, in quotes, so that you can be part of these tough decisions that have got to be made. The President of the Republic of Kenya has been making very tough decisions, extremely tough, because the status of the economy that was inherited by the Kenya Kwanza government was extremely difficult, and it remains difficult. So difficult decisions have got to be made to deal with debt, to deal with revenue, to deal with security, and so many other things. And what we are addressing here, and the resolve that we shall have in making sure that we can follow through on this, is going to be both bitter, sour, but ultimately sweet for the people of Kenya if we do it right, and we do it knowing that we have a target set collectively to improve the well-being of the country. So that is all I can say. Let me not go into any other numbers or details. And it is my honor to request the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, to come forward and make his remarks, and thereafter invite His Excellency the President.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, all the distinguished participants, all protocols observed, good afternoon. Your Excellency, this is a very important conference, and in my thinking, I should have been invited on the first day, not the last one, because this must be a very truthful conversation that requires a truthful and honest man. And now I'm coming at the tail end, but I'll still speak truthfully. Your Excellency, I've been asked as convener of IBEC to comment. It is true. We do sit with officials from the national government and our governors in that forum called IBEC. And the truth of the matter is that the wage bill among our counties sometimes is between 47% up to 70%, which is contrary to the PFM Act of 2012, that caps at 35%. This situation is not sustainable, and that is the truth. And Your Excellency, most of these people seated here are not very truthful. Despite that they are clapping in these resolutions, my own engagement with them tells me differently. In my duty as coordinator of constitutional commissions and independent offices, which you have given me, and it's a great privilege, I receive many complaints and petitions against this or that commission. 98% of all the complaints and petitions that I receive are against the chairperson of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. And most of the people seated here do bring those petitions. Indeed, Your Excellency, to be truthful, you are the only person I've heard you say that the chairperson of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is doing a good job. Everybody else has a problem with her. So let's be honest and let's be truthful, and there's a time. This wage bill is not sustainable, and those resolutions are very good, and I hope you have endorsed them and clapped from the heart. Your Excellency, I cannot sit here and purport to give you advice. Lakini, this issue of fake certificates, I think it's a quick win for us. I think it's a quick win, Your Excellency. If we make a decision could get rid of all the fellows and characters with fake certificates, probably we could knock 10,000 people from the wage bill and recover $1 billion or $2 billion. But Your Excellency, hiyo kibarua ni ngumu. Sijui utaanzia wapi kwa sababu sioni mtu mwingine akiwezana naye. It requires a decision at your level. And I don't know who will help you. Because unajua wewe mtu wangu, lazima nikwambie ukweli. Watu wengi wako kwa serikali, wengine magavana, wengine heads of department, wengine wamekaa huku, wengine wamekaa na wewe hapa. Makaratasi yao iko dosari. So you will have to make a decision. Na sijui nani atakusaidia. Maybe Musalia ataweza because nilimuona ADD pale akisoma. Hata mimi nilikuwa pale. Na unajua mimi rais, hii maneno ya makaratasi sishughuliki sana naye. Because mimi sitaki kwenda hiyo barabara ya kwenda River Road. Mimi natosheka na ile kidogo niko naye. So when I've been complaining that I'm feeling lonely at the top because my boss has 3 degrees, controller of State House has 3, nani kila mtu, mimi niko na kamoja. So hii watu ya River Road wamekuwa wakinitafuta. Nasema sasa wewe naibu wa rais unalalamika nini? Tumesaidia watu wengi. Tumesaidia fulani, tumesaidia fulani, tumesaidia fulani. Rais, hawa list hiyo nitakupatia ile nimepewa. Ya wale wame. Unajua Your Excellency, as you are looking for a running mate, and it was looking like it was me and Professor Kindiki who were in the final shortlist. And my supporters were feeling probably I could be disadvantaged because Professor Kindiki iko pale na mimi niko pale. So a lot of my supporters and characters were calling me. Wanasema tunaweza panga haraka haraka. Hata kama ni kama masters. Utafutiwe ndio ufike pale. So Your Excellency, uliponiita kwa interview kuniuliza mambo ya masomo, nikakwambia niko na degree moja, ukaniuliza hata master huna? Nakwambia rais, unikubali tu vile niko, nitangangana mbele. Na rais unaona mimi nangangana. The beauty, there is no need now to look for these funny certificates. Kuna haja. We have come up with a very good program called Recognition of Prior Learning. If you feel you have skills and competencies that needs to be certified, the mechanism now is there. Kuna haja ya kwenda River Road, Uganda, Ghana, wapi, kuna haja. So hata mimi kuna haja kwenda kungana na masters. I'll turn up kwa hii watu ya qualifications, niseme nimengangana hii na hii na hii, na ninaona kama nimefika hiyo kiwango. They'll assess if they feel nimefika hiyo kiwango na ile kazi nimesaidia rais, wanipatie masters without having to go through that route. So Your Excellency, this issue of fake certificates, you have been known in this country now. You are on record. The hallmark of great leadership is to make difficult, hard decisions, sometimes unpopular. Since you came to office, you have made some hard decisions that from the look of it were looking very unpopular. But today, as we speak, Kenyans are saying you knew something and you did the right thing. In this matter, wage bill, in this matter of fake certificates, Your Excellency, I want to encourage you, make hard decisions that will be beneficial to this country. And that will form part of your legacy. With those very many remarks, let me request all of you to be upstanding as we welcome the President of the Republic of Kenya to come and speak and probably pronounce himself on hard and difficult decisions. Mr. President.
Asante sana Rigiji, tafadhali tuketi. I am delighted to have the honor of presiding over the closing ceremony of the third National Wage Bill Conference for a number of excellent reasons. The first, of course, is that it is absolutely necessary for government to stay abreast of the public sector wage bill as a component of our recurrent expenditure in the context of our broader fiscal agenda. We must always keep in mind that the purpose of government is to attend to the interest and well-being of all citizens by providing essential services and cultivating an environment that fosters economic transformation and inclusive growth. At the same time, we must always remember that economic governance and management are underpinned and necessitated by the inescapable condition that resources are always limited. Our development needs many, and our strategies robust and ambitious. Our commitments will always be defined by the direction of our resource expenditures. And the question always is, are we throwing public resources into a bottomless pit, or are we making sound investments that will anchor growth and create opportunities for many, if not all? This reality is the fundamental question which follows us whenever we concern ourselves with any aspects of public finance management, and which is always answered one way or another by our budgets, whether it is at the national or at the county level. The second reason why this event is important is that the bottom-up economic transformation agenda has invited Kenyans to bravely confront difficult questions, make hard and often painful decisions, and evaluate whether we are serious about rapid growth and inclusive prosperity. The bottom-up economic transformation agenda examined the levels of poverty in our country, the number of people without employment, persistent food and nutrition insecurity, as well as severe vulnerability to climate shifts. The agenda has also prescribed a radical program of ambitious investment in programs and projects with potential to rapidly and sustainably turn the situation around. These investments in the strategic sectors of agro-industrial growth and food security, the micro, small, and medium enterprise, universal health care, affordable housing, and the digital and creative economy require development financing to be available consistently and over a long period. In turn, this imperative has brought home the implications of a national fiscal culture where recurrent expenditure has grown excessively, devouring development expenditure and depriving the country of opportunities to achieve real growth. In fact, this culture reached the point of borrowing expensive debt to finance recurrent expenditure and consumption subsidies. The cost of this trend is very high debt with increasingly risk of distress, low development, unsustainable recurrent budgets, runaway unemployment, poverty, and of course, inequality. Following extensive consultations around the country, we agreed as a people of Kenya that this situation cannot continue. We have to stop living dangerously and beyond our means. We instead need to tighten our belts and make necessary adjustments to make resources available for productive investment. We have seen the fruit of this resolve. As a result of prudent management strategies and bold decisions, we are now far from the cliff of debt distress. Investor confidence is growing in our country. our currency has reversed its previous calamitous slide against major international currencies. Our import cover has grown to commendable levels, and our general economic outlook is positive. Food production has grown by record margins in successive seasons. Kenyans are receiving health care at home because of our community health promoters program. Young men and women are finding increasing employment opportunities across economic sectors, starting with our affordable housing program and all the digital space. As I talk to you today, we have 140,000 Kenyans working in our affordable housing program that were not working last year. We have 120,000 young people monetizing their digital skills. And many more are in the pipeline as we implement our program. There is no doubt that the implementation of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda has placed the country on the right path. Consequently, I am confident that the consistent execution of this agenda will deliver the goods we pledged in our manifesto. The Constitution mandates the government to ensure that public expenditure promotes the equitable resource and development of the country. The Salaries and Remunerations Commission is mandated to continuously monitor the fiscal sustainability of public compensation bill, the ability of the public sector to attract and retain best available skills, recognize productivity and performance, as well as transparently and fairly adjudicate on matters which bill. I know, as my deputy has said, if there is one organization that is not very popular, it is the Salaries and Remunerations Commission. They have a problem with the legislature. They have a problem with the executive. They even have a problem with the judiciary because everybody expects more pay. I want to encourage our legislature. I know they have tried in the past to limit the budget of the SRC as a punishment. I want to encourage them to be more patriotic. If there is one organization that needs support to enable us make the right decisions, not for themselves, but for the country, it is the Salaries and Remunerations Commission. I want to commit that the government of Kenya will continuously make it possible for SRC to attend to their mandate and to guide the country and to guide entities on matters, salaries, and wages so that continuously we can live within our means. The succinct theme of this conference says it all. There is work to be done in ensuring that the public wage bill meets the constitutional threshold. In recognition of this challenge, both levels of government resolved to work in partnership under the aegis of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee in conjunction with SRC and the Council of Governors to set up this conference. As a national government, we have taken the lead with a commitment to reduce our wage bill to 35% of revenue by 2027. I know we've all agreed here on 2028, but I want to encourage us to review that date because it's doable to 2027. As a matter of fact, this very conference was a product of these discussions because we recognize the urgent need for a platform where stakeholders engage on strategies and action plans aimed at achieving this 35% target. Although there is no doubt that government will need to increase employment in critical sectors to enhance service delivery, whether it is in security or in health or in education, the key implications of our deliberation is the need for actions to eliminate duplication of functions and overlaps in roles among ministries, departments, agencies, the national or the county government, and even commissions and independent offices. Even though our public sector wage bill is unsustainable, as it stands at 1.1 trillion, it represents only 62% of authorized establishment in the national government, and 100% recruitment would drive the wage bill to 1.8 trillion. The composition of the establishment itself is problematic in that it is seriously skewed towards hiring support staff at the expense of technical and other core function staff. Clearly, 83% of state departments have violated the recommended ratio of technical staff to support services. We must change course radically. Therefore, we shall review authorized establishments to design fit-for-purpose organizational structures for ministries, departments, agencies with optimal staffing levels and achieve fiscal sustainability at the same time. I have issued instructions to the State Department responsible for personnel issues to make sure that that exercise is carried out and concluded before the end of this year. Our agenda is to work with determination to build on 2 decades of implementation of results-based management with its various tools, including rapid result initiatives, performance contracting, and citizen services delivery frameworks, and deliver an effective, efficient, and transparent public service as a first step to turning Kenya into the hub of public and private sector productivity. A public sector characterized by high efficiency, integrity, accountability, and productivity is vital for the realization of our development aspirations and therefore indispensable for the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. It is also essential for our intentions to make Kenya Africa's productivity champion and the host of the African Productivity Center, which we already have been assigned. To get there, ministries, departments, agencies have to be much more serious about compliance with fundamental integrity, efficiency, and productivity standards. The level of non-compliance with vital constitutional mandates uncovered by the Auditor General and the Public Service Commission in their annual audits is unacceptable and amounts to impunity that can no longer be part of our public service. Just imagine, only 24% of our organizations received an unqualified audit, and the level of compliance with the PCS's audit of compliance with national values is far from pleasing. And nobody is bothered. We're continuing as if it is business as usual. I mean, leaders, heads of ministries, departments, agencies that have qualified accounts, one way or another, don't even bother to ask themselves, what are we doing about it? We cannot deliver for Kenyans when we are burdened with impunity, and we must work round the clock to make sure that we walk away from the current status. Let me again repeat, we cannot deliver for the people of Kenya when we are burdened with impunity and wounded by non-compliance. I want to see reports outlining corrective actions in respect of both audits within the next 21 days. And I expect radical improvements in future audits. It cannot be business as usual. If your accounts are qualified, I mean, you cannot just expect that, okay, it is qualified, so, I mean, you must do something about it. And so I'm expecting a record in the next 21 days of, so what? What are you doing about it? It is true that as a public sector, we have an obligation to secure the best skills in the market to serve its citizens. To do this, the terms of service must be attractive and reasonable enough if they cannot outcompete the private sector. Over time, we have made progress in raising the condition of service for all levels of public sector employees. And this fact cannot be denied. In fact, in some instances, the public sector pays better than the private sector. However, this progress was part of a journey which began at the time when public sector compensation was significantly lower than private sector remuneration. The objective was to bring the two categories, public and private, within a reasonable range, not to sustain a practice of perpetual increment. It is a mistake, therefore, for anyone to take the sacrifices Kenyans have made to improve the welfare, working conditions, and compensation of those of us in the public sector as creating an entitlement to automatic enhancement of remuneration regardless of fiscal sustainability or urgent development needs of citizens. It is a tragedy for highly educated professionals to make unreasonable demands in the face of economic hardships and fiscal constraints and at the expense of legitimate needs of other citizens. We have, ladies and gentlemen, and I repeat this without any doubt of equivocation, we have to live within our means. It is just as simple as that. We have a duty to dedicate ourselves to a citizen-centric public service paradigm and make our contributions to better in order to extend the benefits of development to reach every citizen. Let us be patriotic servants and diligent professionals. I commend the institutions which have won the Wage Bill Accountability Awards for setting a worthy example for the rest of the public service. They just confirm to us that it is possible. So if anybody doubted, they have demonstrated its feasibility. And I congratulate them and I tell them, keep it up. I have carefully listened to the resolutions of the Third National Wage Bill Conference as read here by the chairperson of the SRC, and identify myself with the proposed strategic interventions aimed at putting Kenya on the path to a public service wage bill that is sustainable under the towards 35 aspirations set out in the conference theme. Let us collaborate and remain committed to implementation because that is where the test is. We cannot fail if we work together in the spirit of patriotism, partnership, and teamwork. The government of Kenya remains committed, available, and determined to support every institution in implementing these resolutions. We must therefore get to work immediately and remain on the job until it is done. We have, ladies and gentlemen, a unique opportunity to achieve radical and lasting positive change in our country, whose effects will last for generations. This is why we must remain focused at all times, collectively. The third annual Wage Bill Conference, which we have privileged to attend this moment in our history. And I am confident that the next time we come here, we will be reporting progress. As I have requested, Madam Chair, that the job that we have assigned ourselves, bringing down the wage bill from 46% to revenue to 35% to revenue, can be achieved by 2027. There are agencies, parastatals, institutions that have already achieved this without the target we have set. They confirm to us that with commitment, with determination, with courage, we can achieve this sooner than even 2027. We need to work collaboratively, we need to work together and see to it that every agency pulls their weight. And as I have said, already the 2,100 identified people who have been earning government wages and salaries with fake certificates, so that to Susumbuane, they should just refund the money we pay them as salaries and wages, so that we stop the games. Otherwise, EACC, DCI must move with full speed to recover public resources that were spent on this. Let me also announce here that those who have fake certificates working for government at any level, please surrender and walk away, because it will not be business as usual as we go into the future. It is impunity of the highest level for any person to walk into a government office knowing very well that they have a fake certificate and actually get a job. I think it is, we spend 65 billion shillings every year on our education, surely. We should be able to take advantage of the 65 billion shillings we spend and get the 650 billion Kenya shillings every year we spend on education. You should be able to take advantage of the 650 billion we spend on education and get yourself a proper certificate. I don't think that it's too much to ask, so that at least we can hire. Part of the challenges we have in the public service is because the people who are working there don't have the qualifications they claim to have. And that contributes to the problem that we have. But finally, let me congratulate the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, the governors, and all that have participated in this conference, that we are harmonizing our strategy, we are collaborating, we are working together to make sure that we take our country to the next level. And I am very confident this country is a country of tremendous potential. This country is a great country. This country is a blessed country. We can take Kenya to the next level, working together. And I am very confident that it is doable. The third wage bill conference is now officially closed. Asanteni sana, and God bless you.
One more round of applause for His Excellency, please. May I kindly request that we take our seats briefly. Your Excellency, the Wage Bill Accountability Conference, or rather the Wage Bill Accountability Awards, to be given to several. So if we can take our seats kindly, briefly. And we have 3 awards to be given out, and they are in the following. This is what they have achieved so far. The wage bill for these institutions has not been more than 35% ratio of revenue for 3 years consecutively. They have also demonstrated improvement on reduction of ratio of wage bill to revenue towards achieving 35% 3 years consecutively. They have unqualified audit opinions for the last 3 years consecutively, and have also put in place productivity mainstreaming measures. Your Excellency, I'll now move to those who are going to be awarded, And the first institution is Unclaimed Financial Asset Authority, UFAA, as second runners-up. If we can put our hands together for them as they now receive their award. That is Unclaimed Financial Asset Authority, UFAA, who are second runners-up. First runners-up is the Kenya National Qualifications Authority, KNQA. Put our hands together for KNQA, first runners-up. And the winners, Your Excellency, is Insurance Regulatory Authority, IRA. Thank you. May I request then we all be upstanding as we are now going to finish off with the national anthem. We have a short photo session outside, but for now we'll finish with the plenary with the national anthem. And with that, Your Excellency, we've come to the end of this plenary session. We'll request that we remain standing as we allow His Excellency to retreat at his own pleasure.